let's talk about distance. So, for distance, there's four factors which you can control that affect your distance. And let's try to go, well, I guess we'll go most important. Most important one's going to be your ball speed. The higher that is, the further the ball's going to go. The next factor that's going to, I would say the second most important factor too, is going to be your spin rate. In general, about 2,000 is a good spin rate. This totally fluctuates on how fast you swing. Basically, the faster you swing the ball, that spin rate can drop. The slower you swing, you want a little bit higher. The next one is going to be your apex height, how high the ball goes in the air. And then the last factor is going to be how straight your shot is. Any shot that has bend to it is costing you distance because that bend could be just straight line distance. So basically the furthest possible shot would be completely in a straight line with no left or right deviation, not missing your line at all. So if you can maximize all your factors, that's how you get the furthest shot. So ball speed is obviously the most complex one because you're taking your club speed and assuming you get like a perfect hit, and then there's so many factors and ways to improve that. So I feel like ball speed should be its own video on how to maximize that. There's so many different factors. Apex height. So when I started out on speed training, my fastest ball speed was 155. And people are going to argue this all day long, but the general rule of thumb I get is like a perfectly hit ball, you can almost double your ball speed. Okay, I'm not quite at sea level. I'm at 3,500 feet, so it's probably a little different for me. But so first session, I said 155 ball speed. My furthest ball was 270 yards. So if you do 155 by 2, that's 310 yards. So I was losing 40 yards off like a perfect hit. And the reason I was doing that was one, spin. My spin rate was way too high. I believe most of my shots were about 4,000 spin. And like I said, you're trying to get close to about 2,000 spin to get that like ideal distance. And the other thing is my ball was way too low. I think at the time I was probably hitting it like 20 yards high, so like 60 feet in the air. At that speed, probably you're looking at like 100, maybe 120 feet in the air for a perfectly flighted ball. So if I had changed my speed and my height, I could have got another 40 yards out of that identical ball speed. So without getting any faster, I could have hit the ball 40 yards further just by optimizing those factors. And then the last one's pretty self-explanatory, side-to-side movement. If you're hitting a shot that's shanking either right or left hard, it's going to be costing you a lot of distance. So these are the factors you can control. And I think everyone gets so fixated on ball speed because if you have crazy ball speed, it's going to go far. But it's also the hardest factor to improve. So like I said, when I started out, I was leaving 40 yards on the table. So me figuring out, the first thing I figured out was how to spin the ball less. And that gave me like 20 to 30 yards. And then the last 10 to 15 I got was from getting the proper height. So figuring out those two things, like that's 40 yards. That would be 20 more miles an hour of ball speed I'd have to figure out to get that same improvement. So those are the four factors you can control. And then we'll go external factors. So I know people argue all the time on, oh, he hit this, there's no way it went that far. But there's a lot that changes how far a ball can go. The one people probably argue about the most is altitude. It's not as crazy as you think, but yeah, the higher you get altitude-wise, the ball's going to go a little bit further. I could probably put a chart in to show you like exactly what that is, but it's not this crazy gap you think it is. The other one is heat. I believe every 10 degrees warmer you get like 2 more yards. Like again, it's not crazy. But if you live somewhere where it's 40 outside and you go somewhere where it's 100, like yeah, your distance is going to go further. So we got altitude, we got heat. The other one would be humidity to a very small extent is gonna change. I've read that it's like less than a yard. So unless water vapors are in the air, like it's actually raining, which is going to cost you a lot of distance just because there's so much more friction in the air. So humidity to a very minute extent. And then the other two factors would be wind. If you have wind at your back, the ball's probably going to go further. You probably got to hit it a little bit different. Probably got to get more height on it, more spin on it. But yeah, tailwind obviously can help it out because you're reducing friction that the ball is going through the air. If you have a headwind, the exact opposite, it's going to steal a bunch of distance. The faster the wind is, obviously the bigger effect that's going to be. Probably the biggest factor in distance would be the ground play. So I don't know, let's make up a number. Let's say the average drive rolls out 20 yards. I don't know if that's true, 20, 30, something like that. I've seen videos of Brad Dahlke hitting these 440-yard drives at a course because where they were playing, the course was almost frozen over, so the ball's rolling 100 yards. So the ground conditions probably is the single biggest effect on it. If you play somewhere where the grounds are rock hard, when that ball lands, it's getting like no friction or not digging in at all. If you're getting 50 yards a roll versus say you're playing a wet course, I've played courses before where I drive the ball and it's in the divot from the driver hitting the ground. So I'm like literally getting 0 yards. So if you're getting an extra 50 just on roll, that's going to be the biggest discrepancy. So, I mean, what's possible is like wild to think about. So is Kyle Berkshire's best drive? I think it's like about 600 yards. But so for that, what did he do? Obviously, I think he was hitting like 230 ball speed. So if you do my magic formula, like it doesn't hold up that high. I would say like, okay, his furthest ball is going to be like 460 yards. Okay, well, he hit a ball over 100 yards further than that. What did he do? He went to a pretty high altitude. I think it was like 6,000. It was like a cold day, so he didn't have that in his favor. But he had a good tailwind. And I would imagine the ball rolled decently far. So by maximizing these factors, you can have a ball that, like, if you're playing sea level and it's 40 degrees and the wind's in your face, you might hit a drive that goes like 250 yards. That identical drive at a different place might go 350. If you all of a sudden are at higher altitude, 40-mile-an-hour tailwind, the ground gives you 50 yards a rule, like, you can have an identical shot that changes by 100 yards. So I think it's so funny that people argue about distance all the time when there's no standard distance. Like, people love to say, like, sea level, 60 degrees, oh, if that ball went 10 yards further, that's BS, because according to this TrackMan thing I saw, that's not possible. But there's, like I said, all 4 of these factors can increase or decrease your distance drastically on an identically hit ball.